Welcome to Everything All Right, Literary Talk, and my guest today is Gill Paul. Her latest novel, The Manhattan Girls, is out now, and it's already dubbed the Sex and the City of the 1920s, which sounds all right to me. Welcome, Gill.
Thank you so much, Ellen.
So I've got one burning question for my viewers and listeners. Tell us if Dorothy Parker's clothes, hairstyles, plot lines are as exciting as Carrie's.
More so, I think Dorothy Parker is wittier than Carrie. For me, she's the wittiest woman in the world ever. And her humor hasn't dated over the last 100 years. She comes out with lines that are so apt today. You know, for example, if you want to know what God thought of money, just look at the people he gave it to. You look around you in the world and there are so many people that could apply to. I'm not going to name any names. So, you know, she was a genius. She was just so clever with words and with wit and humor in a time where women just weren't funny. You know, they weren't, I mean, obviously women were always funny behind closed doors at home, but they were never encouraged to do it as a career. And she was a real trailblazer in that respect.
So can I then still ask you what inspired you to write the novel, or have you answered the question already?
Well, I've always been passionate about Dorothy Parker since I first read about her, I think in my teens. And I have a list that I supply to my publisher of subjects that I might want to cover at some point. And Dorothy Parker had been on it and she said, yes, go for it. And I didn't. And I hesitated because I thought, gosh, who am I to write dialogue and thoughts for the wittiest woman in the world? So it took me a while to come around to thinking that maybe I can do this and give it a go.
It is very daunting, but then I think daunted is one thing you've never been. So let's go way back, because you've written so many fantastic novels, and I've read at least half a dozen of them. How did you get into writing?
I'd always wanted to write. I suppose lots of authors that talk to you will say the same thing. I was a huge reader as a kid and I always wanted to write. But my parents told me that writing wasn't a career. I had to have a proper career. And they kind of steered me into studying medicine because my dad worked in medical fields and I was a kind of all-rounder student. So I passed the sciences and ended up at university studying medicine, which was completely wrong for me and completely wrong for the world, I hasten to add, if I had qualified as a doctor, heaven forbid. So it just took, I then switched into the arts, did an arts degree, English and history, and gradually maneuvered my way to where I wanted to be, writing.
And how did you then get serious? Because it's such a step between wanting to write and actually becoming a writer.
I worked in publishing, but not in fiction, in art book publishing. And I was writing my first novel at weekends and evenings. And I started going to a Friday night creative writing class called Writing Space in Primrose Hill in London. And that helped enormously. And then I finished my first novel, sent it to agents, got taken on by a very traditional route. I mean, you know, there's so many ways you can approach it nowadays, but I just got taken on by an agent who sent it out to publishers and I got picked up by a publisher. So I was very lucky in that way.
That is lucky indeed, but luck is earned, I think, in that case. So your novels are meticulously researched. Tell me, did you go to New York and did you have lots of cocktails to write this one?
Yes, I've been to Manhattan a few times and I've had my fair share of cocktails in life, I would say, yes. I tend to do location research after I've written the first draft, because for me, it's not so much about the place. I know for some authors, it may well be very, very much about the place, but I'm trying to get inside the characters' heads, and the location I'll use just to make sure that I've got the geography right, or to pick up little snippets of, you know, the smell of a particular plant or the sounds that you can hear as you walk down the street. So it's the tiny little things I'm looking for in location research, plus the fact that you get a free holiday because it's you can deduct it against tax.
Let's hope the taxman is not listening. What authors do as location research, we hope the taxman is not listening here. I mean, you've written novels about the Russian Revolution and about novels that tear the soul apart, like, you know, about Jackie Kennedy and Maria Callas. So did you find, were there anything hard part to write in the Manhattan Girls? Lovely cover, by the way.
I mean, there are some trigger warnings for readers with this book, because although it's about four women who become friends through forming a bridge group together, there is some difficult material. Dorothy, as well as having this rapier wit, she had very fragile mental health. And so there are, I don't want too many spoilers, but, you know, she did have suicide attempts, she did have an abortion. So there are difficult subjects dealt with, as well as the humor and the fun and the dancing and the cocktails.
Yeah, but
which
I mean,
of course it was Prohibition era, so the cocktails were all disgusting bootleg ethanol, basically.
yes, but there are definite hints of Some Like It Hot in there, which I adored.
Oh.
So who inspires your writing? Do you have an author whom you especially admire?
So many, and I love your books, by the way, Ellen.
Oh. Don't say that. Say it again.
I started writing novels about real women after I read Paula McLean's The Paris Wife in 2012, I think it came out. Now that's about Hadley Richardson, Hemingway's first wife, and she writes it first person about the experience of being married to this budding author, difficult man living in Paris, and she was supporting him as he tried to get his career off the ground. And it's a brilliant novel. I absolutely love it. And it just made me think about how I could do the same thing, try to take a woman in history who's maybe been written out of history or marginalized, and tell her story. And that's what I've been trying to do in my last few novels, certainly. So Paula McLean was definitely an inspiration.
Yes, and history's hidden heroines are so much more interesting than anybody, where you already have 15 novels about them. I mean, I personally, I find Anne Boleyn very interesting, but I would never go there. It's been done. But
well, it has, you say that, but you know, you still want to be inside her head at that
yes,
moment as she walks out onto the scaffold, wondering if Henry will give her the last minute reprieve. And that's what fiction can do, that movies can't do and biographies can't do so well.
be in
So,
her head. Be in her head, absolutely. Now, this is fairly early morning that we are recording this. Describe us what lies ahead. How does your writing day look like? Do you have any must-haves?
today,
Or in general?
yeah, normally my writing day is I'll do some social media first thing in the morning, which all of us authors have to do now, apart from the few lucky ones who don't bother. And I'll write from about 10 till lunchtime. And then I swim in a pond in North London every day, year round. And fortunately, I mean, it's very warm at the moment, but in winter it can freeze and we have to melt a channel in the ice to swim in. And that's my absolute passion, but it's also thinking time. So I consider that still work. Summertime, I'm researching the next book that I'm about to start usually. And so I'm doing a lot of reading at the moment. And hopefully I can go and sit under a tree and read somewhere later today.
Is that your top tip for NASA novelists? Read a lot, think a lot?
Oh, obviously read a lot, and read a lot of the type of book that you want to write as well. Because you get a kind of story sense in your head from a lot of reading that, I mean, I've never been to an actual, I know I was in a creative writing group, but I've never studied it at university the way some people do. I wouldn't like to think, I don't think there's a formula that you can learn so much as just what you pick up from reading other people's work that you admire and getting a sense of the rhythm of it and how it works.
Yes, and that thin line between inspiration and imitation. We all walk it wonderfully, yes. Don't we? So obviously Manhattan Girls is out now. What is next for you, Gill? Because you're probably already penning on the next masterpiece.
I've already finished the next one. I'm on a very tight schedule at the moment of a book a year, but I'm not announcing the subject of that one until later this year. But it's about two formidable women in the 20th century who were rivals with each other. And I had great fun. It runs from about 1915 to 1945 in Paris, London, and New York. So yes, I'm looking forward to announcing that one.
Oh, wow. That sounds fantastic. I'm having an educated guess, but we'll do that when we're off air. No spoilers, please. So we've already come to the end of our talk. Just very quickly, the 5 faves. So without thinking, Gill, your favorite movie, please.
Winter's Bone, which was Jennifer Lawrence's first big movie. It's very complicated, dark multi-layered movie that I do recommend people watch if they haven't already.
And your favorite book or novel?
I'd have to say The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver.
I'm with you. I'm with you there. Do you have a favorite score or music or song?
Anything, David Bowie, the entire works of David Bowie.
Your favorite food? How are you celebrating the launch of the Manhattan Girls?
Well, my favorite food is always curry, and I cook a lot of curries and grind my own spices. So yeah, definitely Indian food.
And does that lead to your favorite travel destination?
I do love going to India, but I'd have to say Manhattan, because there's just never a dull moment there. There's so much, no matter how many times you go, there's more to see and more to admire. I love New York.
Yeah. So, and we are hoping for more Gill Paul. Thanks for listening and watching Everything All Right. My guest today was Gill Paul, and we talked about her current book, The Manhattan Girls, ordered online or better still in your independent local bookstore. I am Ellen Alpsten. Subscribe to Everything All Right and listen and watch next week. Thank you so much, Gill.
Thank you, Ellen.